Welcome to Humans of Business, the podcast where we uncover the human side of successful businesses. Here we speak with business leaders about the human traits that fuel success and how embracing who we are can shape the way we do business. Every business starts with a human, so let's learn from real humans one story at a time. My name is Yuri. I help people and brands shine through communities and personal connections, and my guest is Tre Balchowski, a coach, a trainer, and a public speaker on a mission to make powerful ideas understandable, memorable, and impossible to ignore. And from coaching tech founders to secure funding, win trust, and own the room, to co-founding a storytelling community, Odd Salon, that delves into history, science, art, and adventure in San Francisco, she helps people turn knowledge into narratives that move people with the power of storytelling. So, welcome, Tre.
Thank you.
Happy to meet you. I'm super happy that Jennifer connected us because she was like, Tre is my go-to person about storytelling. Go ask her everything. I was like, I'm connecting with her right away. I'm obsessed with storytelling. Let's do it. Let's have this conversation. So tell me one thing about you that I can't find on your LinkedIn profile.
That you can't find my LinkedIn profile. Wow. I think hiking is on there, and I think mushroom hunting is on there, which are normally my two secret facts. Next secret fact, I'm an obsessive traveler. I travel a ton. I've gone to nearly 40 countries. I think I'm at 39. I have explored a lot of the United States. I've gone to most of the states here. I really love experiencing other places and other people. I live in San Francisco Bay Area, in California. California is a very specific culture. The Bay Area is an even more specific culture, and I'd love to get out of it and go see other people in other places and experience the whole world. I'm obsessed with people and places and cultures, and I just want to learn from everybody.
What was the place that you loved the most so far?
There's a few places that I thought, oh, I could live here. I could really move here. Ljubljana was one of them. It just had a beautiful soul, really gorgeous old style, and then on top of it, a really vibrant kind of punk rock scene. I don't know that they would call it punk rock, but that was kind of the vibe I was getting from it. Very, very original, very raw, really interesting. The food was amazing, just like, organic food that they're like, yeah, that's just called food. We don't label it organic. That's just food. I loved Ljubljana. And then I really love Hawaii. We've spent a bunch of time on the Big Island. It's diversity of topography and people and just everything. When people think of Hawaii, they think of just like these tropical islands, and this has plains and it has mountains and it has desert all in one place. And of course it has amazing snorkeling. So those are my two kind of top right now favorites.
Okay, snorkeling and food, got it. But did you hunt mushrooms there?
No, not on Hawaii. In Ljubljana, I saw some mushrooms, but I don't know European mushrooms at all.
You never know those mushrooms, yeah.
Yeah, I don't hunt mushrooms that are not in my known territory. Hawaii does have some really interesting mushrooms that I have been exploring and looking up in books, but I haven't been in the right season to find them.
Are we talking about the same mushrooms, just to be clear?
I hunt all sorts of mushrooms. Chanterelles and hedgehogs are my two favorite here. Also, black trumpets are in season right now in California. All sorts of beautiful edible mushrooms, culinary mushrooms. And then I'm super interested in the ones that are just fun looking, that are weird and I would never eat, but are really great to hunt out and find and poke and take pictures of.
Yeah, I feel like some mushrooms are definitely just for pictures taken because you don't really want to get them. Okay.
No.
So tell me a little about the business you are building at the moment.
I'm a public speaking and storytelling coach, and that's kind of a shorthand for there are a lot of people in business, particularly in tech, who are trying to build a future. And they need to tell many stories in order to get people to buy into that future and work towards it, invest in it, buy their products, these types of things. And often, they are not people that have been taught about storytelling. They're not people that have been really thought about how they verbally communicate at all, or how they communicate just in general across writing. These are highly skilled, incredibly focused product people, engineering people, scientists, mathematicians, just deeply skilled in really narrow subjects and not particularly great at talking to people across a breadth of education, background, and subject matter expertise. And so what I do is help them understand storytelling, understand how to communicate with another person, understand that I can't communicate with you the same that I'm going to go and communicate with an engineer, the same that I'm going to go and communicate with a VC. We've got to communicate in ways that are reflective of our audience and our goals with that audience. So that's what I do, whether that is on stage, giving TED Talks or main stage talks, whether that is pitching in the boardroom and to VCs, whether that's getting the employees rallied around you by doing an internal conversation. All of these really high stakes moments in an executive or a founder's career are the places that I show up to support.
If someone is a tech founder, and of course it's so much easier to be a mathematician, to be like writing the code than talking to people, because sometimes talking to a machine is easier. So if someone is on this journey, but they understand they need these skills, they need storytelling skills, they need to speak publicly, where do they start?
Ooh. I would recommend that they start with an understanding of what they're good at. Understand which audiences they're good at. Understand, am I comfortable in front of a group of 10? Am I comfortable on a panel in front of 100? Where am I comfortable and where am I good? Is a podcast a place that I feel comfortable? Where are these places that are my home base? And then start eking their way out. Start reading books that have good narrative. Start reading books that are about storytelling. Start listening to podcasts that are about storytelling, these types of things. Just live in the soup of storytelling, kind of soak in it, and then apply one skill at a time. Apply one thing each time. And then if you get to a place where you think, I've improved, but I haven't improved enough, or I'm finding these edges or places I just can't break through to, hire someone, hire a coach, get someone in your corner that's going to push you and understand where to push you and how to push you and how to support you.
Since you were talking about podcasts and books, do you have any favorites?
Yes. Jay Akunzo, absolutely masterful storyteller. He does really similar work to me. He has a fantastic podcast that is called How Stories Happen. Absolutely wonderful. Really breaks down story structure, really gets into how do you advance story. Absolutely fantastic educator and a really great coach. He works exclusively on those main stage talks, and it's just fantastic. So he's the best podcast. And then books. I really like this one I've got on my shelf. Hold on. This isn't specific to stories, but Made to Stick is a fantastic one around making ideas interesting and sticky. And it has a whole chapter about storytelling. It's just, it's a really great framework to wrap your head around, to understand. And if you reverse from an idea to stick to a story that sticks, it's the same deal. The same moments that are in a story that sticks are this ideas that stick. So it's very applicable. And I think it's a great way to break it down for a mind that isn't fully into story yet.
Yeah, there are so many amazing books. And once again, Made to Stick is one of them. And, I feel like it's also about a little bit of kind of fairy tales, because it's like how people, tell stories from the early ages, and then people are remembering stories their parents told them, in the early age. And I think that it's also very, very nice, to read like fiction books. And I'm curious, do you have your favorite fiction book?
Right now, my comfort fiction book that I've been reading a ton in the last 3 years is Becky Chambers. She has a series called the Monk and Robot series. And the first book is my favorite of the two. And it's called A Psalm for the Wild Build. It's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful human story. It's also set in a world that is beautiful. They went up to the apocalypse and kind of poked it and decided to back away from it. So it's kind of a post-apocalyptic, but the apocalypse didn't happen. It's a beautiful, hopeful world that's also real and full of real people who are dealing with real problems. And it's not so idealistic that there are no problems. So I love that book. It's a great kind of warm hug of a science fiction.
I feel like I have one more book to add to my to-read list. So thank you very much for that. So I feel like everyone kind of needs to have this public speaking skill and also storytelling. Who doesn't need it?
I don't think anybody doesn't need it. I was trying to think of who needs it the least. And every time I was like, no, they really still need it. Perhaps scientists that are just in the lab, entry-level scientists that are just doing the tube piping, right? But truly, the thing about storytelling and public speaking is that public speaking can be a misnomer. What I'm doing right now is public speaking. I'm talking to you, one person, but this is public speaking. I've started saying public and private speaking, right? You still need to understand your audience. You still need to understand the goal of your communication. You still need to understand how to adapt, how to bob and weave, how to structure your answers so that they make sense to someone and bring someone along. All of these things, it doesn't matter if you're in a job interview, if you are taking your science and presenting it to a panel, it doesn't matter if you're getting on an actual stage. If you are talking to someone and have a goal in mind, I want to get this job, I need to get this science funded, I need to get the next group of people into my lab to make them work on this project, it really doesn't matter. Your skill in your communication, in your ability to paint a picture of the future and to paint a picture of that person in this role, to paint a picture of what happens if we get funding, all of these things are so critical to the success of your career that I really don't think that anyone who's going to talk to another person doesn't need these skills.
I really love this kind of distinction between public and private speaking. And I feel like that the podcast is the best mix of both, because you are still doing kind of like this publicly, because there will be people who will be listening to it and you still kind of like thinking what message you want to deliver, as you've said. And also it's private because there is no one except for us. It's just two people talking, like no one else is joining this conversation at the moment. Of course, afterwards people will listen and kind of join the conversation. So I feel like it's a very, somewhere in between these two worlds. And I'm curious, when was a moment in your life, in your professional story, that you realized that storytelling isn't just good to have, but must have?
My first real job, I put air quotes around that, was working for Williams-Sonoma. So Williams-Sonoma is an American brand that is started as kitchenwares and kind of have branched out from there. But it's high end, it's customer facing. And there I was the very first person they hired to be working on social media. So this is 2008 or 9. They didn't have anyone doing social media. They are a very traditional brand. And I am this girl fresh out of college with platinum white hair and a side to side pink faux hawk. This is the time period, right? And they hired me. I'm not entirely sure why. I was definitely a risk for them in terms of brand. But I understood how social media worked. And I understood that story was really important. And connecting with people around a shared story was the way to connect in that time period on social media. This is a very different time period, right? This is a lot of years ago. And that was when I realized that not everybody knew this. So I always knew storytelling was important. This was something that's in my veins since a very young age. What I didn't realize is that it wasn't in everybody else's veins, that it wasn't a default, that people didn't understand that we need to tell a story in order to captivate someone. And storytelling isn't, I say tell a story. Sometimes storytelling is a picture. One single picture that tells a whole story about a family and how they're coming together for a meal that's happening, that's important. And the thing that's on the table that's holding the meal is the thing that you're selling. But what you're actually talking about, what you're selling conceptually, is that family moment and the cohesion in that moment, the celebration of a grandmother or the celebration of a graduation, whatever that is. And what I didn't realize was that that thing that I understood so deeply wasn't understood. And that there at Williams-Sonoma was when I realized that.
What you explained, it's like coming into an art gallery and like staring at the painting. So it looks like, yeah, it's just a picture, whatever, like everyone can do this. And then you see all those tiny details that literally tells you a story. And I remember I heard it, I feel like I read it in the book, in some book, and also heard it on a podcast when there was an assignment that students had to literally sit 3 hours in front of the painting to really understand what's behind. Because if you just take a quick look, okay, painting, whatever.
It's
But
pretty.
then,
Moving on.
exactly. But when then you are sitting and you are crazily mad that you have to sit for so long, you are bored to death. And this is the moment when you start understanding, this is what author wanted to tell me. I feel like it's very similar thing, with the storytelling, because sometimes you can't share all the story you want. You can't picture all the paint all the picture you want. You still need to start somewhere and then let people think about like what to add next. And I'm curious, from your perspective of a storyteller, what are the most important details to include in a story and what you have to leave to imagination?
This is really going to depend on your audience and your goal. The key is that you need enough detail that someone can place themselves in your story. Enough detail so that someone isn't just hearing a list of facts. That's one of the big differences between a list of facts and story. Two main differences there. One is detail that allows someone to picture it, imagine it, understand it, place themselves there, question it, engage with it. The second is there change? Change is critical to story. George Saunders says a story is a protagonist plus change. It's the best equation that I've heard for a story. It's so simple, it's so cut to its core. But if you don't have a protagonist, that can be a person, a business, an object, a country, anything, and then change, you don't have a story. You just have facts. And so I want people to include enough detail that they can understand the change. What is the change state? Even if it's very subtle, a change of understanding, a change of the way that we look at the world in a perspective, a more physical change, a change from a child to an adult, a change from a small startup that's scrappy to that 300-person kind of awkward startup that is in those teenage years of figuring it out. Whatever the change is, we need to be able to see that, demonstrate it, understand it, have the tangibility of it. And then the second set of details that are really important are whatever are the details that are going to illuminate and have someone feel that tangibility of the story and be able to imagine it. So that's going to change from story to story where that peppers in and how, what details that's going to be. But those are the two main categories.
No, usually people are shying away from talking about some facts, some failures, something that went wrong or something they disliked back then. And I also understand that the best events in the world are like fuck up nights, or how they call it, when people are exactly sharing these stories. So I'm curious how to include a failure in a story in the right way, like how to use it for the better storytelling.
First of all, failures are popular because it makes other people feel like they're not alone, right? So we all know our failures. We all know those moments that we just face planted. And sometimes it's minor and you picked yourself up and you kept going. Sometimes it's major and it destroyed your career, or it, changed the way that you have relationships. There's all sorts of ways that we fail. Failure stories are popular because it makes people be like, right, I'm not the only one who's failed. And furthermore, it can't just be a failure story. It can't just be, I failed, the end. The really important part of a failure story is the therefore this happened. So in a story that is about an arc of a product, right? You have a product and you've pivoted a bunch. Pivot is a nice word for that didn't work and we changed it. In other words, that failed, therefore we moved on. So in a pivot story, you want to show the iteration. The iteration is the interesting part. It is the part where we understand how your brain works, how you tested, how you figured out like, hey, this fundamentally didn't work. What could work? It also shows that you didn't death grip that thing and white knuckle it and say, no, this is my baby. I will not change, right? It shows that you were willing to change as a company, as a leader, however that happens. So when we illuminate failure, it's important to know that you don't have to illuminate the failure you haven't learned from yet. In fact, don't. Unless you're in a circle in which that is the point, is to look for the lesson and to, in a group, look for that lesson. Those aren't super interesting. They might be a little schadenfreude, like people like watching other people, particularly people they don't like, fail, but it's not, there's no lesson. And people love a lesson. And that lesson is often what we attach to in stories. So what is the failure that you learned from? What is the failure that pushed you forward into the new version of yourself, the new version of your company, the new version of your offerings? And what is the failure that maybe set you up for who you are today? In personal stories, that is huge. These times in our life where just like, you might call it rock bottom. You just are really hitting the edge of it. And then how did you rebuild? Those are fantastic stories for really showing your true character and how you overcame, how you persisted, all those types of things. So those are the types of failures that I like to see in story. Don't just put it in because you've been told people like failure. That's not going to work.
I feel like if a random person goes out and tells some random failure story and maybe even what they learned, there is a huge question if people will care. And I think it's also a lot about trust. It's also like how trustable, how likable, how lovable you are. And I'm curious, from your experience, how do someone build this trust when they talk to a team or when they talk to investors or when they talk to audience? How do they make them trust? And specifically, you have to make it fast because people they have the really short span of attention. You can't build this trust for half an hour. You have to make it fast. So how to make it?
First, you have to trust yourself. This is critical. If you are getting on stage and you are questioning yourself and what you're speaking about internally, that's going to come across in a way that you cannot fake your way out of. So you've got to trust yourself and your topic. You have to understand where you are and how you are comfortable. The second component of it is a vocal trick. When we speak, the way that we move our voice through the time and space reflects to someone else a level of authority. And when we go up at the end of sentences, when we fry out at the end of sentences, this does not establish authority. It doesn't establish trust. The fastest way to establish trust in voice only, and then I'm going to talk about also facial structure and body language. The fastest way to establish trust is to go down at the end of your phrases and your sentences. And I'm modeling a little bit over the top. But if you go back and listen to everything that I've said previously, a lot of the time I will be going down. I'll just a small down in my voice. It's called downward inflection. And it establishes authority. It just says, I know what I'm speaking about, and I could tell you a pile of nonsense. I could tell you a tall tale. And if I go down at the end of phrases and sentences, I will sound trustworthy. So that's voice. Let's talk about your face. You want to give warmth and authority with your face and with your body language. So warmth and authority together are going to build that trust. If you have just authority, people are going to understand that maybe you know what you're speaking about, but shy away from you and not know whether they trust you or not. If you have just warmth, you know, that's your grandma coming into the room and just being all about love, and you're not entirely sure if she loves you because you are her grandchild or if she loves you because you've done a good job, right? You want the balance of the two. So there's a couple of things that we can do. We want to make eye contact. We want to smile, but not like for listeners only, not a goofy smile, not a forced smile, but a pleasant resting face. We want to make sure that we're making that eye contact, and we want to make sure that our body language is open. Our shoulders are open. When we make hand movements, we're making them outward. So if you show the palms of your hands, this is a signal to our brains that we are trustworthy and that we're not hiding something, right? When we speak, we're going to be keeping that body posture open, friendly, but also when we check our shoulders, when we've done this, which we've curled ourselves inward, and also you're going to see how this changes my voice structure. Curl ourselves inward. We've now cut off the oxygen that we're using. We don't have the power to get that nice authoritative sound out and the warmth sound out. When we do this, we might look really warm and friendly, but we don't look authoritative. So we need to balance those two things. So that's kind of what we want to think about when we want to establish trust fast, is we need to establish that connection, the authority, the warmth all together really quickly. And that's going to take your voice, your face, and your body working together. And then content, great. Content can just come out. The other things that are going to help establish trust is cutting down on your filler words, your ums, your ahs, your likes, these types of things, making sure that you're not using phrases that reduce your authority. I think is a big one that people use. Is another one. There's all sorts of these kind of shortcuts that we pick up in our language and put in for no apparent reason. Mostly it's a cultural thing. Each place and each time is going to have different ones of these. By cutting down on those, you sound more authoritative, you sound more trustworthy. And keeping that warmth again. And one thing that's really interesting, people have asked me, but how do I put warmth in my voice? You've taught me to put authority into my voice. Really simple. I'm going to say a sentence, and then I'm going to say the same sentence, but I'm going to say it with a smile on my face. And listen to the difference. The cat walked across the road. The cat walked across the road. Just by putting a smile on my face, same words, same intonation, it's warmer. It's more welcoming. It's more connection.
Even when you listen to it. So because many people are listening to the podcast, and I totally believe that they will understand the difference. It's a huge difference. And, you were talking about, once again, you talked about, I think, and So what is the opposite? With what to replace this word? Because I hear a lot of people using I think and how to replace them.
Replace them with silence. Just don't say them. Here's the thing. When we say I think, we are discounting what's going to come next. And we will often say I think in front of something that is not a question, but we have put a this is about me and only me, and I don't know that this is true, and this is something that's rattling around in our head. Even though thinking about something, thinking deeply about something is a valid form of contemplation and introspection and inquisitiveness. However, when we say the words "I think," we are cheapening what comes next. And is just a throwaway phrase. We're not trying to do anything with that. When we say, it's not because we're attempting to soften it. It's not even because we're attempting to say, you already know this. Because if that's what we're trying to say, we will say something like, I'm sure you already know that, blah, blah, blah. But I need to establish that fact in order to get you into the next phase, right? We will say this in a different way. And for me, one of the things that I struggle with is I use the word right in a lot of places. This is something that is very Bay Area. We respond to a lot of things with right, with an exclamation point and a question mark. It is a verbal tick that is equivalent to the Valley Girl like that was in the 90s and in the 80s. So we need to understand what our verbal tics are. We need to understand where they come from. Are they cultural? Are they something that tells the person sitting next to me, I'm one of you? Are they things that we picked up in our childhood? Are they things that are telling me I'm filling space? Are they tics that allow me to keep thinking about the sentence before I start it? Why are they there? And then eliminate them. And let me be clear, I do this for a living. I speak on stage all the time, and I still have them. I haven't completely eliminated them. I'm working for them to be much smaller percentage of what I say during any given monologue.
What about phrases such as I believe or I feel?
If you are speaking about what you believe, truly in that belief space, or you want someone to understand how you are feeling, yes, use it. If you are going to say, I feel that this is the best book for someone to read today for this topic, drop it. This is the best book. Go out and get it. Like, do the thing, right? Be a little bit more owning of what you're saying. That's going to change the way that people perceive you. But when you are speaking about your deep beliefs, one of the things that I believe is that anyone can be a good public speaker. And I will say, I believe this. I believe it in my heart. And additionally, I have proven it out. I have taken people that are not good public speakers and turned them into good public speakers. So it is both a belief and a knowledge, something that I know through repetition, through my work. I will still say I believe this because it is a core belief of mine. And when someone comes to me and says, I don't think I can do this, that's a belief level for me. So use it sparingly, but don't put it at the front of sentences in the same way that you would put I think.
You reminded me a little bit about the content. So the way you talk is sometimes it's even more important than the content that you are sharing. Of course, it has to be balanced. And I remember it was this TED Talk, like my favorite TED Talk ever, how to sound smart in your TED Talk. Like a person like literally talks about some crazy stuff, like talking gibberish, some weird facts. And like, it sounds credible. Like you want to trust this person, like literally. So everyone who didn't see it, like go see it. It's like one of the best talks I've ever seen. And still, when you are publicly speaking, when you are telling a story, you can become likable and you can become trusted. Sometimes it's both, sometimes it's different. And I'm curious, what is the difference between liking someone and trusting someone?
I'm not sure if I have an answer for on stage. However, I do have an answer in person, in relationships, in business relationships, in all sorts of things. There are people that I like to spend time with that I don't trust with my business, that I'm not going to take the advice of that person. I really like them. I like hanging out with them. I like talking to them about music, and I may trust them when it comes to music and like them in general, but I don't trust them with my business. I'm not going to take advice from them. And so there's a big difference between liking someone which is to say we may have similar interests. They may be kind. They may be interesting to me. They may be fun to hang out with, versus a trustworthy person, which is both a general. There are people that I would trust in general. I trust them to give me feedback. I trust them to take my car and park it in the place that it's supposed to be in, and like deal with, my valuable objects and not break them, or I trust them in those ways. But there's also subject matter trust. I love my parents deeply and I trust them with all sorts of things. I don't trust them to give me business advice. They're not business people. They're not entrepreneurial people. I trust them to give me camping advice. I trust them to give me life advice, marital advice, friendship advice, all sorts of things that are deeply personal. I would never trust them to give me business advice. I have all people that I trust deeply with business that I would never ask if I was having a problem in my marriage. I would never come to them and ask for their advice because I don't trust them in that arena. So likability is about the connection between people, and trust is across subjects.
Can you trust someone you don't like?
I'm thinking of a very specific person that I don't want to spend time with it pretty much ever, but I will definitely go for advice on specific topics. So yes, I think that you have to have a level of, the word is escaping me right now. I still haven't had my second espresso. I apologize. You have to have a level of knowing that that person is a good person, or that they're not a bad person, maybe. I don't necessarily like everyone, right? Likability is something that's going to be dependent on personality types. The person that I'm thinking about, I don't want to spend time with them. I don't like hanging out with them. I deeply trust their expertise on many subjects. I think that at their core, they have my best interest in mind when they give me advice. Their authority is clear. Their goodness is clear. They are not a bad person. It's not that I dislike them. It's that I just am like, meh. It's a neutral, right? I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to spend my coffee time with you. I'm definitely not going to take you on a hike. So yes, I think that you can trust someone that you don't like, as long as you don't dislike them and as long as you understand their breadth of authority.
What story are you still learning how to tell about yourself?
This is a hard one, or rather, this is a hard story for me. I have a really hard time talking about my success. I have an easy time talking about story. Like, to ask me questions about story, I'm here all day. Ask me questions about my clients' successes, here all day. I really struggle being like, yeah, I'm good at this and I do good work and my personal successes are X. This is something that is so deeply uncomfortable for me. And that's a real cultural thing. Where I was raised, how I was raised, we didn't really talk about our successes a lot. We talked about team wins. We talked about how someone else was doing an amazing job. We didn't really celebrate ourselves, and not in a way where we were punished for celebrating ourselves. It just wasn't part of our ethos, right? We didn't brag. Bragging was looked down on. And often I feel like when I am talking about my own successes that I'm bragging, and I have like a little demon that sits on my shoulder that's like, don't brag, Trey. Mom says not to do it. What would grandma think? So this is a story that it's a struggle for me. And I can sit down and I can write the story and I can structure it out. But when it comes out of me, it's not embodied. It doesn't sound great. It's still one that I'm learning.
It feels like it's also the words difference, like what word you choose, like either it's bragging or telling a success story. Mm-hmm. And once again, I feel like it's but I totally get you. It's something that I'm still learning. And if someone asking me like, what am I doing? I'm like, no, I'm just talking to people. And then like, they read about like on LinkedIn and stuff in writing, like, oh my God, you're doing so many things. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So. I think here I am saying, I think, but this is something that I ponder. Is it that it's uncomfortable to tell the success story? Or is it that I'm so close to it that, for example, Odd Salon, this is an organization I ran for 12 years. We sunsetted in December of last year. For 12 years, we were on stage in San Francisco, and for 5 years, we were also on stage in New York, telling stories about history. To me, this is just a thing I did. But when people hear about it, they're like, oh my God, you have a show in San Francisco and in New York. It's been running for 12 years. Like, that's crazy. That's so successful. And I'm like, it's just a thing I did. I love it. It was so fun. It was a thing that I founded with 2 of my friends, and me and my best friend did together. It's just a thing I did. And so sometimes I also think that because you're so in it, you're so close to it, you don't necessarily see it. And so then when you try to unveil it and you try to write it down and you try to put it into this success story structure, it feels so inauthentic because the way that I lived it was as a grind, as 12 years of producing something, as 12 years of like working with venues and figuring out speakers and teaching speakers and getting the decks done and having the deck crash and like having technical difficulties. That's how I experienced it. I didn't experience it as a success story. I experienced it as a thing that we did and we had fun, and sometimes it sucked and sometimes it was amazing, and sometimes I actually got the opportunity to like sit and really observe the cool thing that we built, and that was so rare. So that's another thing that I ponder in this, why is this story so hard for me to tell, is that I didn't live it as a success story. Other people have seen it as that. And so you have to put yourself to tell that story when you're living in it, in someone else's mind, in someone else's perspective, in order to take that wider view with less detail. This is a place where less detail is important in order to understand how that is a success story.
It feels like when, you have someone's kids, you see them once in like few years, like, oh my God, you're such a grown up. And for parents, like, yeah, they're just growing up, like because you see them daily and you didn't really see them. But then grandparents or friends, oh my God, they're such, I totally get what you're talking about. And I wish to have the sky is the limit, but time is the limit to our conversation. So the final question, what is one thing that you are really good at that no one knows that you are really good at?
Well, we've already talked about mushroom hunting.
And it's on your LinkedIn, so people know about it.
And it's on my LinkedIn. People know that. Oh, this is the thing. I am really good at planning dates for other people. And getting them, I just love this. And it doesn't need to be a romantic date. It can be a date with a friend. It can be a date with your parent. But designing a small 2 to 4 hour experience in which you get to actually connect with that person, have fun, or have a very specific emotion evoked, and do something that is very out of the ordinary for your daily life. And that is a thing that I love to do. It's one of my little quirky things that I do for my friends. Sometimes that is planning an adventure, a 4-day adventure with friends in the desert, going overlanding, or sometimes that is planning a museum date for someone for their partner. I love planning, and I'm really good at planning in a way that evokes a specific emotion or a type of connection.
Sounds like orchestrating their emotional experience.
Yeah, it's a little bit of telling the story live, right? It's like developing a story, having them live a story live, and it's very fun. My dear friend Leica teaches courses on this, and I was good at it before I took their course, and then I took their course and was like, oh yes, this is the ordinary magic, is what they call it, the ordinary magic way of doing this, and it's really fun. I love doing it.
Last but not least, name 2 people I should have this podcast conversation with.
I think I'm going to kick it to Leica. Leica is an experienced designer who worked with Meow Wolf, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They are a massive immersive art experience. And They also now are teaching courses. They're a solo entrepreneur teaching courses in experience design. So definitely Leica. And then the other, Michelle Paul. Good friend of mine, Michelle Paul, is a really unique thinker. She works in the space of gosh, how do I even explain it? Like, how does a human engage with your company? It's not marketing, it's not user interface, it's not user design. It is a such more holistic and beautiful way of thinking about this and the way that your customer set is involved. Her way of thinking is so deep and so incredibly like deep and wide on the way that she thinks about this. And I just love having conversations with her and saying, okay, here's one question, and I'm going to sit here and listen.
Got it. And what is the best way to connect with you?
That's a good question. I'm going to say LinkedIn because it's publicly accessible. I'm starting a newsletter, but my whole business is word of mouth, and so I'm not crazy accessible, but I am someone who answers my DMs. So find me on LinkedIn, slide into my DMs, ask me questions. I'm happy to answer questions, and eventually I'll have a newsletter that I'll direct you over to.
Got it. Tre, thank you so much for sharing all this amazing experience. I love talking about storytelling with you because you really immersed me into your experience, into your knowledge. Like, when I just talk to you, you don't even have to explain to me that you are a storytelling expert and public speaker. The way just you tell the stories, the way that you share, the way that you use your voice and like how you gestures and all the things, you just tell a story without telling it. How they tell and sell, like tell, not sell. So basically you are telling, not selling. And thank you so much. I learned so many things from you and I just had a lot of fun. So thank you very much for this conversation.
Me too. You're so welcome. And this was a delight.
And see you in the business world.
All right. Bye.
And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about how the community can help you reach and overcome your business goals faster, let's connect on LinkedIn and talk about it. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.